As of August 2025, Brazil finds itself under an unprecedented assault from the United States, courtesy of President Donald J. Trump's aggressive economic and political playbook. These measures are not just harsh. They represent a targeted trade campaign with high tariffs on specific Brazilian goods. Trump has declared a national emergency under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, or IEEPA, through an executive order, framing Brazil as a direct threat to U.S. national security, economy, and foreign policy, and citing interference in American interests. Targeted sanctions have been slapped on Brazilian government officials, particularly judges, accused of undermining U.S. benefits. Tariffs on Brazilian goods have skyrocketed, starting with a 10% levy on BRICS countries, including Brazil, and then jacked up by an additional 40%, totaling a high 50%, though with exemptions for certain products like orange juice, and the tariffs were delayed amid offers of negotiations that Lula rejected. Trade pressures are being deployed as coercive tools to address concerns over human rights abuses, such as the prosecution of Jair Bolsonaro and free speech violations, including the X ban from August to October 2024, with BRICS alignment as an additional factor. And in a defense of U.S. interests framed around free speech, the U.S. has backed big tech titans, accusing Brazil of violating free speech through tightened regulations on American firms like Elon Musk's X, formerly Twitter, while also protecting U.S. business interests. Why would the U.S. resort to such extreme tactics against a long-standing ally in Latin America, a region Washington has long treated as its backyard? The answer likely centers on one pivotal figure, Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, whose leftist policies, masterful coalition building, and unyielding international stance have transformed Brazil into a formidable counterweight to U.S. hegemony, igniting this bilateral crisis. Lula da Silva stands as Brazil's most famous and polarizing politician, a lifelong champion of left-wing policies that emphasize social welfare, international multipolarity, and sovereignty against foreign meddling. His career arc, from a humble union leader to multiple-term president, lays bare the roots of his provocative positions that are now infuriating Trump and his administration. Lula's left-wing politics stem from his origins as a factory worker and union leader, the very crucible where his political journey began. Born into abject poverty in the northeastern state of Pernambuco, Lula grew up in a family of poor farmers. He dropped out of school after second grade to work, never attended university, learned to read at age 10, and toiled as a metalworker from his teenage years. This background forged a profound empathy for the working class, turning personal hardship into a political fire. During Brazil's brutal military dictatorship, Lula spearheaded massive strikes and protests, risking life and limb to challenge authoritarian rule. In 1980, he helped organize thousands of trade union supporters to form the Workers' Party, or PT, a grassroots movement that defied the elite-dominated political landscape. In a symbolic reflection of his commitment to eradicating poverty, Lula once declared,
"É que eu jamais esperava que a fome voltasse nesse país. Jamais. E eu quero dizer para vocês, se quando eu terminar esse mandato, cada brasileiro estiver tomando café, estiver almoçando e estiver jantando, outra vez eu terei cumprido a missão da minha vida."
This quote, drawn from his advocacy on the world stage, underscores how his own rags-to-riches story fuels a relentless drive to uplift the marginalized, a theme that permeates his entire career. Lula's coalition drew primarily from Brazil's political left, encompassing the working class, low-income populations, left-leaning Catholic voters, Afro-Brazilians, and indigenous peoples. This was a remarkably unique arrangement of forces, one that, in my view, propelled the Workers' Party to unprecedented growth and strength. It wasn't just about ideology. It was about uniting disparate groups under a banner of social justice, a strategy that would later prove instrumental in his rise. His early presidential campaigns tested this base. In 1989, Lula ran as the PT's candidate, advancing to the second round but losing by approximately 4 million votes, garnering 47%, or about 31 million votes, against Fernando Collor de Mello's 53%, or 35 million. Defeats followed in 1994 and 1998, yet his support swelled with each attempt, signaling a shifting tide in Brazilian politics. Still, it wasn't enough to clinch the presidency, yet. Much of this period unfolded against a backdrop of severe economic crisis in Brazil. Inflation spiraled out of control, forcing the country to undergo 5 currency changes from 1986 to 1994, while about 1/5 of the population languished in poverty. In the late 1990s, a center-right government enacted sweeping economic reforms, stabilizing the currency and reducing poverty. However, these changes disproportionately benefited the elite, leaving many in Lula's coalition behind and fueling resentment that would later erupt. By 2002, when Lula launched his 4th presidential bid, he pivoted strategically. He broadened his coalition by incorporating members from conservative and center-right parties, including prominent businessman José Alencar as his running mate. This move attracted center-right voters, such as business owners and bankers, expanding his appeal beyond the traditional left. Lula's charisma was key. He could seamlessly address a boardroom at a major bank or connect with residents in a poor favela, speaking in ways that resonated universally. This innovative coalition building led to his first presidential victory, a watershed moment that shattered the status quo. In his inaugural term from 2003 to 2006, Brazil's economy surged, largely thanks to a booming trade partnership with China, a magical economic moment that Lula capitalized on masterfully. He channeled this revenue into groundbreaking social welfare initiatives, most notably Bolsa Família, a cash transfer program that provided stipends to families ensuring their children attended school and received vaccinations. The goal was dual: addressing immediate needs while paving a path out of generational poverty. Accompanied by reforms like minimum wage hikes, these efforts further expanded his coalition, drawing more Brazilians to vote for left and center-left politicians nationwide. The economy boomed, ushering in a massive growth period that made Lula an unstoppable force. By term's end, his approval rating soared above 60%. Despite emerging accusations of bribery and corruption, his unparalleled popularity and coalition prowess secured re-election in 2006. Lula's second term, from 2007 to 2010, cemented his legacy. Brazil's GDP reached historic highs, and so did his personal approval ratings. As Barack Obama famously quipped, Lula was the most popular politician on earth, a testament to his global stature and domestic triumphs. In 2009, Lula handpicked fellow PT member Dilma Rousseff as his successor. She inherited his robust coalition and was elected in 2010, taking office in 2011. Early on, however, challenges mounted. A drop in global commodity demand triggered a recession, and Rousseff's economic management alienated the center-right business community. Corruption allegations compounded her woes, and her lackluster political skills, she negotiated poorly with Congress and offered flawed economic guidance, eroded support further. The coalition's collapse began in earnest in 2014. A sweeping government investigation, known as Operation Car Wash, exposed widespread corruption involving PT officials in a scheme with Brazil's state-owned oil company, Petrobras. Rousseff's approval plummeted, leading to her impeachment and removal from office in 2016. Lula himself was implicated in bribe-taking allegations. He was convicted in July 2017 by Judge Sergio Moro and began serving his prison sentence in April 2018. Released in November 2019, his convictions were annulled in 2021 due to judicial bias. Yet unlike Rousseff, Lula's popularity endured. Many Brazilians rationalized, "They all rob us. At least this guy gave us something back." In a defiant response to these charges, Lula proclaimed, "This is a farce to destroy my political career." This statement encapsulates his view of the scandals as politically motivated attacks, a narrative that resonated with supporters and bolstered his image as a persecuted champion of the people. Lula's resurgence and reinforcement of leftist principles from 2019 onward have been nothing short of remarkable. In 2019, Brazil's Supreme Court released him from prison and later annulled his convictions, paving the way for his political comeback. By 2022, he mounted a successful campaign against Jair Bolsonaro, emphasizing anti-far-right themes and forging an even broader coalition that included moderates from the center and right. This led to a razor-thin victory with 50.9% of the vote, marking his third presidential term. Taking office in January 2023, Lula prioritized domestic policies on income redistribution, social inclusion, economic growth, education, and democratic consolidation. Early successes included robust GDP growth and reduced unemployment, though he faced setbacks and concessions to far-right elements on certain issues. On the foreign front, he normalized international relations, amplifying Brazil's role in BRICS by inviting Vladimir Putin to the 2025 BRICS summit despite ICC arrest warnings. He criticized Russia's invasion of Ukraine, but controversially blamed Ukrainian President Zelensky, sparking debate. Ties with China deepened through record trade and investments. In 2024, Lula further solidified multipolar ambitions, meeting Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov in February and hosting the G20 summit in Rio in November to emphasize South-South cooperation. Domestically, he expanded social programs, such as an upgraded Bolsa Família, but grappled with economic criticism amid high inflation. He imposed stricter regulations on foreign tech firms, such as IEEPA's Twitter, to combat misinformation and election interference, directly clashing with U.S. interests. By 2025, up to August, Lula attended Moscow's Victory Day parade in May, strengthening Russo-Brazilian bonds, and signed a decree in April for the Green Mobility and Innovation Program, focusing on energy efficiency, recycling, and automotive safety to promote sustainable development. Unemployment has fallen to 6.2% by May 2025, reflecting ongoing economic recovery. Amid escalating U.S. tensions, his approval ratings have rebounded to between 43% and 50% by July 2025, demonstrating a rally-around-the-flag effect alongside contributions from economic recovery and expanded social programs that have mitigated earlier dips tied to inflation and economic challenges. He continues expanding BRICS involvement, hosting the summit in Rio in July, and pushing economic collaboration with China and others, moves that directly conflict with U.S. priorities under Trump. The outcomes are mixed. A revitalized leftist coalition has positioned Brazil as a major challenger to U.S. hegemony through multipolarity and economic independence, fueling ongoing bilateral strains with no end in sight. Successes in socio-economic realms coexist with critiques over inflation and political compromises. Lula is not merely a symbol of leftist resilience. He is the central force making Brazil a target of America's harshest measures. His career underscores how one man's unyielding pursuit of justice and sovereignty continues to reshape Brazilian politics and global relations, standing as a beacon against imperial overreach in an increasingly polarized world.